And there's two outcomes that I'd like to get out of this.
Recording in progress.
And number one is to add a 0 to your net worth in the next 3 years. Okay? So that's initiative 1. Number 2 is to help you close an additional $100,000 in commissions this year. We're going to talk a lot about money today. Now, it might seem a little counterintuitive because of the time that we're facing, right? Hold on, Shoni, let's not talk about money. It's a recessionary period, right? It's actually the best time to be aware of your financial opportunity. I'm going to be a little rough with you guys today. If that's okay, I want your permission to do that. I'm going to poke you and prod you in a few different ways. And it's because I truly believe that this is the time that you need to step up in your business and in your personal financial life. Is that okay? So we're going to go through a few things, and we're going to start with talking about the 7 seeds of wealth. I would suggest writing this down. We'll send out the slides, so you don't have to copy what's on the slides, but just whatever ahas pop for you in this time, you want to take some notes on. So the 7 seeds of wealth. These are principles that I've learned over my time, and I'll just kind of take a step back and say, hey, if you look to when I was 22 years old, not 2022. When I was 22 years old, I was in a place where I had too much month at the end of my money. Okay, and I was in a place where I didn't actually have what we'll talk about today is a wealth consciousness. I didn't have the strategies or the ideas or the understanding of how money worked. And it wasn't until certain mentors, certain experiences came into my life that I learned about these 7 seeds. So we're going to talk about those today as a foundational piece. And then we're going to get into my favorite conversation, which is real estate investing, okay, and understanding that at a higher level. So number 1 is to think wealth. There's a saying by Henry Beecher. He says, he who hunts for flowers will find flowers, and he who loves weeds will find weeds. That is the nature of our time right now. What are common thoughts as people watch the news, as people hear what's going on with inflation? What are common thoughts right now? Are we in an overall abundant state of thinking or scarcity? Scarcity. How is that actually playing out in people's actions today? What are you seeing happen? What are your buyers choosing to do?
Look at the parking lot. We're half.
Yep.
Half as full as it was a few months ago.
Yep. Is this room thinning out a little bit? It's going to happen. Like the reality is they're projecting that there's going to be a mass exodus over the next couple of years from real estate. There's a lag kind of timeline, but that's the reality. And it all depends on you starting with your philosophy around what this time means for you in your personal life. What I would say is that it could be the greatest financial opportunity you will ever see if you choose for it to be. So today we're going to talk about, 1, developing a wealth consciousness, and then there's a reality that I believe that any 5th grader could understand the keys to getting wealthy. And what stops the masses from becoming wealthy is what? If you learn something today, what do you have to actually go do with it this week? Take action. You've got to apply it. You've got to implement it. That is actually what stops people from becoming financially free. So you've got to have some sort of initiative out of this meeting today. What is the 1 thing or 2 things you're going to go and implement? So make sure that you're looking for that 1 thing for you. Number 2 is your profitability. Profitability. Okay? So wealth is built on your ability to profit. If you actually break down the word, profit, ability. I want you to think about this. What has been your ability to profit over the last couple of years in your business and in your personal life? And there's this 2 kind of factors that you want to look at. When it comes to business, you need to hold every dollar accountable. Every expense that you have, you need to go through an audit and ask yourself, am I getting an ROI? Am I getting a return on this investment? And in your personal life, during this time, we do suggest you seek frugality. You need to look at the things in life that may not be necessary. Part of taking advantage of this opportunity when it comes to, I'm going to talk about in a minute, of being able to invest in this time depends on how well you're going to be able to do with your discretionary expenses in this time. So really take an audit of your current personal life expenses and say, what can we do without right now? And be mindful of those things. The key to profitability is to create the habit of saving first and spending what's left. Like I mentioned, this was one of the big tricks for me was I had too much money or not enough money at the end of my month. And it was because I didn't have this focus of paying myself first. So that's one thing you have to start doing right now is pay yourself first. Okay, set up a savings account, Barclays Bank or even American Express has an online savings account somewhere where it's not easy to access. Those are online savings platforms where you can get your money in 3 days if you need it, but it creates this mental trigger. If you do go to spend money, you say, I need to take $1,000 from this account or $1,500 or whatever it is, it creates a little barrier to help you save that money. So make sure that you're focused on your profitability. Number 3 is to keep score. Now, score is defined as an objective measure, a metric to judge success. So you've got to get clear about what score are you going to keep. Okay? Now, the ones that I would suggest are 2 different factors right now. Number 1 is your P&L, your profit and loss statement. How many of you, by raise of hand, keep and maintain a profit and loss statement for your business? Okay, maybe 30-ish%. So that's a big challenge right now, is look at how much income is coming in and how much expenses are going out, which leads to the other key metric of tracking and keeping score of right now. What is it? Income minus expenses equals profit, but there's another word, cash flow, right? You actually need to look at your business cash flow right now, your personal life cash flow, which is how much money is excess after all my expenses are expensed per month. So you need to get really clear about what is your monthly cash flow in your life. And I'm breezing through these because we're going to get to the real estate investing, which is probably going to be one of the pieces that you guys really enjoy the most. Number 4 is you actually have to have a strategy to beat inflation right now. Okay, you need to face the reality. Does anybody know what the CPI reading was for last month? 9.1, the new one that just came out. 9.1. Now we do know that that number is kind of camouflaged. It's not legit. It's actually much higher than that reading. And so you have to have, and what does inflation do to your money? Devalues your buying power. It literally is one of the greatest destroyers of wealth. You cannot, in this kind of time, unfortunately, save your way to wealth. So you've got to be aware of that. You have to know what inflation is right now, and then also a strategy of how do you beat inflation. And we're going to talk about that. So there's this idea that nature has no mercy at all. Nature says, I'm going to snow. If you have on a bikini and no snowshoes, that's tough. I'm going to snow anyways. You don't get a choice in this current market on what inflation does to your wealth. But you can prepare for it. Now the question I'll ask is, what does inflation eat for breakfast? Your financial future. If you're not planning for it, if you don't have something in place that's hedging your bet with inflation, it's actually decaying your money over time. So just be aware of that. That means if you had $100 today, and at the end of the year, we've had, let's just say an average, let's say it's 9% over the year. How much money is that $100 worth now? 90, right? So you've got to be aware of that. Number 5 is minimize your risk. Risk is the possibility of loss. What does Warren Buffett say as far as the number 1 rule to investing? Don't lose money. Does anybody know what he says the number 2 rule of investing is? Never forget rule number 1. Okay? Do not lose money. And the way to be able to do this is you have to invest in what you understand. That's key number 1. Invest in the things that you understand. I'm sure you guys have seen some stories recently about different cryptocurrencies that have evaporated, right? And some individuals who their wealth was tied up in that one cryptocurrency or opportunity. And so, the number 1 thing is you have to invest in what you understand and minimize the risk as much as possible. The way that I suggest doing that is use principles, use guidelines for your investments. So make sure that you have a disciplined buying criteria. Yeah.
Years ago, Warren Buffett was asked, "Are you investing in the software and the new age?" He goes, "No, I don't. I stick with the railroad. I stick with tried and true things that I understand."
Totally. He sticks with what he understands. And that is actually a rule of all intelligent investors, is stick to what you understand. So whatever you want to invest in, study it immensely first. Number 3, risk is mitigated by specialized knowledge. Study wealth, money investing, and what I'll say, real estate. Who in this room has a specialized knowledge of how real estate works? Hopefully everybody should raise their hand. Okay? I believe you have an unfair advantage when it comes to real estate investing and using that as a tool to leverage yourself into long-term wealth. We'll talk about that in just a sec. Number 6, multiply it. So when you get money, you've got to multiply it. You cannot just add. Addition does not work when it comes to building wealth. Multiply, to add a number to itself a number of times. So a grain of corn placed in a fertile soil shoots up a green stalk, blossoms and produces an ear of corn containing hundreds of grains, each capable of doing what that grain did. Einstein, he said that compound interest was the 8th wonder of the world. And that's what we're actually going to look at in a second, is how does compounding interest play a massive role in your ability to create wealth. Number 7, last one, is that passive income is a continuous cash flow with little or no effort required. And I love this quote by Bob Marley. He says, "Better to die fighting for freedom than to be a prisoner all the days of your life." So passive income, you need to have a goal or strategy focused on obtaining passive income. Now, what I would say is set targets. This is a very simple principle. Set targets. First, say, you know what? I'm going to earn enough passive income to where it pays for my family vacation this year. And then up that ante. I'm going to earn enough passive income where it pays for all of my vehicles per month. I'm going to earn enough passive income to where it covers my living expenses. And then Gary Keller, he talks about how true freedom is being able to create enough passive income that it enables you to live and fund your life mission without having to work. Now, you can have the someday goal, but start with the right now. How much passive income can you create just to cover your cell phone bill? Right? Start small. And look at how you can eliminate your expenses through passive income, through owning assets. Okay? Now, I breezed through these because this was just kind of a Kickstarter to the real conversation. But does anybody have any questions or thoughts on these 7 principles? Are you following me? Are you guys awake today? We good? Okay. So I do want to dive into a strategy, and I want you to pay attention to this. So these are the 7 seeds. We'll send this out. I want you to pay attention to this in a unique way. I want you to have on a pair of glasses, and I want you to see out of 2 different lenses right now. Okay? Can you do that with me? On the right side of your lens, you're going to be thinking in terms of how am I growing my wealth with this knowledge that I'm about to share. And with the other lens, you're going to say, how would this actually get me more business in my real estate business this year? You with me? So this is my strategy. I know the slides are a little bit dark, but this is accounted for roughly just under 30 transactions for me last year, this conversation we're about to have. Not only that, but it's been a massive key for me building my own passive income journey and wealth building journey. So I'm not holding anything back. I'm going to give you guys everything that I have. And what I'm going to suggest is that I challenge you to study this stuff ongoing. Okay, make sure that this is just the start of the conversation. A lot of the concepts I'll share might be stuff that you're already aware of. Okay, it might be something that you're in tune with. But what I'd ask is, are you using it effectively with your clients? Okay, so we're going to skip ahead. This is actually kind of my listing presentation, or more of my investor presentation. When I am sitting down with clients who are potential investors, this is the kind of slide deck that I use instead of a natural listing presentation or buyer presentation. So there's a ton of stuff that I go through before, which is talking to them about the state of the market, what's happening in Utah. But what I want to go through right now is the 4 wealth generators of real estate. Now, this is what got me into the industry in 2016. And when I say into the industry, I was not a licensed agent. I just started buying rental properties. I didn't get my license until the end of 2019. But this is what sparked for me. When I was 21 years old, I had an interview with a great mentor of mine, and he had made $1 billion from his company that he had created called Peterson's Incorporated. They built rocket boosters for NASA, big machinery for Nestle. I've shared this story before. But I asked him, what are the 3 things that I need to spend time on or invest in? And he gave me 3 keys. Number 1, he said to invest in myself. Number 2, he said to invest in network equity, the people that I'm surrounding myself with. But he said number 3 was what? Take a guess. Real estate. Now I'm going to show you why, in my perception, real estate is the best investment to make and one of the most risk mitigated investments that you can make as well. So when you own a stock, how many ways are you making money on that stock? 2. What are they?
Depreciation and dividends.
Appreciation and dividends. That's it. It's your only options. What happens when you sell that stock? Capital gains come into play, right? Now, with real estate, the beauty of it is that you actually have 4 different ways that you're earning or making money on that asset. So we're going to break through these 4. Now, the one that's most common, most people are aware of, is cash flow. Cash flow is your income minus all expenses equals your cash flow. The biggest mistake that investors make is they look at the income of a property minus the mortgage, insurance, and maybe the HOA fee as their cost and think that's cash flow. You have to take in every expense associated with that property. So you've got to look at your property management fees, utilities, capital expenditures, maintenance. Any of those have to be taken into account, vacancies, before you really truly know your cash flow. Any questions on cash flow? Okay, pretty simple. The next one is actually probably my favorite. It's tax benefits of owning real estate. Now, how the tax side works is you get a benefit called depreciation, which is the IRS allows you to depreciate the cost of that home over a certain period of time. Now, when you buy a home, is it realistic that you're going to have the same carpet 30, 40, 50 years from now? What about the same light fixtures? The same microwave? Right? So what happens is they understand that your property is actually decaying over time. So they give you a benefit of the building value, not the land. Just be aware of that. So whatever, let's say it's a $400,000 property price. Let's take out 150 for simple math and say that's actually the land cost. The 250 is what the building structure is. Divide that by 27 and a half years and that becomes the tax benefit per property. Does that simple equation make sense? Okay. So the building value divided by 27 and a half years equals the tax benefit. We won't go too deep into the weeds with this, but there is an opportunity where you can do something called accelerated depreciation, where you can take the majority of that depreciation in a 5 to 10 year run. So instead of waiting 27 and a half years to take all those benefits, you can actually do it in a very lump sum format. Okay? Becca.
I think this is really cool because this is how you make all that cash flow and you don't have to clean up the tax.
Yes.
So it's like
Yes. So what this does is the cash flow that you receive from your properties, it wipes it out, right? Now, depreciation, normal depreciation, what happens when you go to qualify for a new loan? They add it back in. They actually know it's a kind of a fictitious loss to your business. And so that's added back in when you're qualifying for homes. I will say if you're going to do accelerated depreciation, you want to talk with a CPA who knows what line to put it on. It has to be done a very particular way to not run into hiccups. Does anybody know how much Donald Trump paid in taxes when this came out? Remember hearing that? $700, right? It's a nice tax bill, right? The reality is that the IRS incentivizes a certain behavior. Why are they actually incentivizing people to own real estate?
they're bad at being landlords, so they want us to do it.
Yes. They don't want to try and be landlord to hundreds of millions of people. They say, I will give you a tax break if you do it for us, right? So use that to your advantage. Now, here's one thing that I want to tell you as a real estate agent that will unlock unique opportunities that you may not be aware of. When you are labeled as a real estate professional, okay, just understand for your normal clients, this depreciation is really only going to help their tax or their cash flow on their properties or any capital gains from selling other assets, okay? When you are a real estate professional and designated as such, this actually attacks your active income, not just your passive income. So if you're making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 as a real estate professional, if you own a couple rental properties, it can make your tax liability zero. Nobody else can do that. So again, you have an unfair advantage that you need to really get behind, study, and understand, because this is something where if you're saving $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year in taxes, what can you do with that money? Reinvest it. Buy some more, right? So just be heavily aware of how that works. Now, just a little quote, employees pay the highest percentage of taxes, big businesses and investors pay the least. Appreciation. So there's two forms, natural appreciation and then forced appreciation. Natural appreciation happens because of different factors, location, supply and demand, population growth. Did anybody grow up in Utah Valley? Okay, I went to Pleasant Grove High School. We'd play Lehigh in football every year, and we'd make fun of them. We'd call it Farmville or Hicktown, okay? Has that changed? It's quite a bit different than it was a decade ago, right? So be aware that areas change. Location is the #1 key to real estate investing. Location within cities, but then also location as far as neighborhoods go, okay? So you want to get scarce, desirable assets. Where do people desire to be now? Or if you're really playing the game right, where do people want to be in the future? Where do people want to be 3 years from now or 10 years from now? That's where you're going to get the most appreciation benefit, okay? Forced appreciation happens because you've enhanced the property that you purchased. So you've gone in and done some renovations. Obviously here in Utah, we have an upper hand than most states where we have basements. Many of them are unfinished. You going in and finishing that basement increases the value of that property. Updating things like kitchens, bathrooms, increasing monthly rents, decreasing expenses. When it's looked at as an investment property, if you actually decrease expenses or increase monthly rents, it appreciates the value of that asset as far as an investment goes. The last one is adapting to the highest and best use of the property, Airbnb. I'll give one simple example. I have one rental that normally would bring in probably when we bought it $1,400, maybe $1,600 a month in cash, in income per month. We've had it as an Airbnb since February of last year, and it brings in close to $4,700 per month. It's a big gap, right? Now, obviously, you have to be aware here in Utah, we have HOAs, we have cities, we have regulations in place that make that challenging. So you have to be aware and study where can you do? And I know, Becca, I think you guys created a cool list of cities that were open to short-term rentals, right? So go find that post. Any questions on appreciation? Cool. I know I'm breezing through this, but are you guys keeping up? We good? Okay. We can go deeper on this in the future. The last one is loan paydown. Each mortgage payment persists of 2 payments. Yes?
On depreciation, the average depreciation now, opposed to last year, was about 28%. Now it's 10%,
Yeah.
on average, 9%.
Yeah, the average appreciation. If you look at historical figures, the safest, I always play my numbers on like a 3 to 4% appreciation. When I'm buying a property, I just closed on another rental yesterday, and I always do my numbers at 3.5 to 4% appreciation. I know we can get here in Utah, if you look at our average, it's actually been about 6.6% since early 2000s. So we're in a unique market for sure. But yeah, we're probably going to be between 10 to 15% is what they're anticipating for this year. Great perspective. Loan pay down. So every payment that's made, part of it is going towards your interest, part is going towards your principal. Okay. Now that principal can be looked at as like a long-term savings account or long-term piggy bank. Okay, is how I like to look at it. So I'll show you an actual deal that I did. We'll do a quick deal analysis before we wrap up. I'm going to skip a few things. So if you want to make your money work 5 times harder, I personally suggest real estate. And why I'm talking about this right now is all of my investor acquaintances, friends, network, they're still planning on buying a ton of real estate this year and next year. There's actually going to be a lot of opportunities in this coming market that you want to take advantage of. So I would say double down on your study of real estate investing right now. But one easy, simple look at this. $100,000 into the stock market gives you how much worth of stock? 100,000, right? 100,000 in real estate gives you how much assets you can leverage? 500,000, right? 20% down. And we have some unique loans where you can do 10, 15% down as investors. Cash flow is a little bit different in those situations, but be aware of this, that your $100,000 allows you to leverage $500,000 worth of assets. Now, what happens when that $500,000 property appreciates $100,000 or $200,000 over the next 10 years? Does the bank participate in that value growth? No. Be aware of that. That's all yours, right? That's the beauty of leverage. Allows you to instantly 5 times the amount of money you can control. It's a double-edged sword, though. If you're buying a bad investment, that also can negatively impact you, right? If the property value decreases a ton. So I'm going to just get into a quick deal analysis. So this is how I present to a client when we're looking at properties, what their potential ROI is going to be. This is actually a property. The picture is wrong, but the actual deal itself is legit. This was a property I bought this was actually my first deal. I bought this one in 2016. It was a townhome in Suncrest in Draper for $225,000. Now we put 20% down, so it's $45,000 down. Our interest rate was actually 3.75 on that property. And the down payment, again, 20%, and everything in blue is what you adjust. We'll share this calculator. Everything that's in white or green automatically adjusts for you. So when you come to it, we had a $180,000 loan on that property. Our monthly payments for principal and interest only were $800. When you factored in the HOA fees, insurance, and so forth, it was closer to about $1,300, $1,200 per month for that property. We were collecting $1,725, when we first started on that property. And then these are all assumptions on the right-hand side here. So these are looking at what are your potential expenses for that property. And you want to be able to quickly put in these numbers and identify where that's going to leave you on a cash flow basis. So up here, it will show this property, we were getting $415 in cash flow when we first bought it. That grew over time because rents increased. The property cost stayed flat. And so on this, the cash on cash flow return was what? 10.6%. Now, if you take into it, that's just the cash flow we were receiving, okay? Now, you have to be able to calculate all 4 wealth generators. You have to take all 4 of them into account when looking at your investment. So if you look at on this side here, the one that I'm not a math whiz, and so you have to kind of go calculate this on your own and plug that number in because I couldn't figure out how to do some sort of equation that would spit out what the annual principal paid would be. But for this one, it was roughly $6,000. The remaining numbers do automatically calculate. So 40 at a 3% appreciation rate, and then the potential tax benefit for that single property, and then the cash flow per year on that property, it would spit out that our benefit cash on wealth generators, so all 4 of them, was 132%. Now the question is, can you do that with stocks? What's a really healthy return on the stock market?
Unless you're Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, unless you got some insider trading knowledge, right? Like average 8-10%, right, historically. And so the one thing that I'll share is, this is the exact home, but one thing that I'll look at is the gain, so the $202,000. Now, this was in a crazy inflationary time, obviously. So our average, I think, ended up being somewhere close to 17 or 18% appreciation year over year as we held that property. The one thing that I'll leave you with is this, okay? If you're buying off of speculation, I suggest not investing in real estate, okay? If you're buying off of fundamentals saying, will Utah property be worth more 10 years from now than it is today, I would suggest you be all in on buying assets here in Utah. I know people, my clients always talk about this, well, the prices are high in Utah. What happens when you buy that property, and let's say that it's a break even on your costs? Is that going to be the story on that property forever? Why? Rents go up. The cost stays the same, right? And so what you're going to see over time is year 1.5, 2 years, you're going to be positive on that property. And one of the things to look at is, again, what has been the 30, 40, 50-year history of appreciation in Utah real estate? That's the one thing I would suggest you study and look at. And ask yourself, is Utah going to perform over the next 10 years in a very positive manner? And use that as a leverage piece. We'll send out some books with these slides as far as what I would suggest studying. There's 3 specific books that I highly encourage in utilizing that. Last piece I'll use is, if you ask all of your clients, everybody that you did business with over the last year, if they had interest in investing in real estate, I would suggest that 80 to 90% of them would say yes. Many of them just have a fear, or they have negative, disempowering beliefs, or they just don't know how to get started. But I've done this with my sphere. Again, I had just under 30 closings last year that were investment oriented. So I promise, if you start having the conversation, a lot of your clients could be buying or selling multiple properties with you, or you may only be doing one transaction with them. I had one client I talked with in September of last year, and he said, by the end of the year, I need to spend $1 million in cash for tax benefits, obviously. And so we bought a triplex, we bought a single family home, just over $600,000, and then 2 townhomes within a 1.5-month time span. Now, working with that one client in repeat deals was a lot easier than the navigating emotional-driven clients, right? We have some of those, right? This was simple math. And so that's one challenge I invite you into, is understand the math. Understand how real estate investing works. When you can articulate that to a client, you automatically unlock more transactions you're able to do. Okay? I know we went a little bit over, but was this valuable?
Yes.
Good? Awesome. Thank you. Okay. We got Ibex today. Adam, come on up. And I've got to say, while Adam gets set up, this dude always brings the best lunch. I love Olive Garden. Who else likes Olive Garden?
Thank you, guys. Fortunately, I've been